Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. We have another returning guest today. Today we welcome back Lucas Woodland from Holding Absence to the podcast. Holding Absence's new record, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction, is out this Friday, August 25th on Sharptone Records. Lucas talks about the split with Alpha Wolf, how the band spends their time while touring, going personal with the lyrics on the new album, touring in America, and more. It was delightful having Lucas back on the show, and everyone should check out The Noble Art of Self-Destruction on Friday. Make sure you're subscribed to As the Story Grows wherever you get your podcast. Come hang out on Discord, sign up for the mailing list on Substack, and get advanced access to every podcast on Patreon. There's a ton of episodes up on Patreon right now. Links are in the show notes. Enjoy today's chat with Lucas Woodland of Holding Absence.
Just checking everything's okay on my end. Yeah,
Sound good.
Yeah,
Look
cool.
Good.
All right,
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Sweet.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, how have you been?
Good. Yeah, it's summer, even though it's like wearing a sweatshirt because it's cold as shit in my office. So
Where are you based at the moment?
DC.
Okay, nice. Yeah, okay, we're from very different places. So
Yeah,
it's pissing down with rain at the moment in my small little village. So yeah,
that's good. That's good stuff. Last time you were on the pod, you were promoting the split with Alpha Wolf.
Yes.
I saw the vinyl sold out, so like people must have been interested. But like, what was the general response to that release? Were people like, "Oh, this is cool that these two bands from very different worlds were together"? Or
yeah, generally the response was brilliant. It was I think it was a good idea for everyone involved, for us, for Sharptone, for Alpha Wolf, of course, as well, and for the fans as well. So yeah, I think it was a great idea, and I think the coolest thing about it was, in hindsight, like it was quite low risk. You know what I mean? We just put out like 2 songs each, and they all 4 did well. But like, if they didn't, it's not the end of the world. And, it was a cool idea and I'm glad we did it, So it was funny. I think the only thing we could have done more with it would perhaps have been to have toured. But I think it's tough because we're both such busy bands.
Yeah.
And I think because we're so genre different, that's what made it cool. But that's also what kind of made it hard to like pursue any further, I suppose, So but hopefully someday we could do the tour. That'd be great. So.
Yeah, for me it was cool because like I remember going and buying like split 7 inches or split CDs and be like Get Up Kids and Coalesce, or just like here's
like Alexis on Fire did one with I remember yes, and same Deftones, and and like I think that's the main reason we've done a split twice now, is because it's like there's no need for it to happen anymore. Because you know what I mean? Like the digital age doesn't need that. Whereas back in the day, it was like essentially they would do it so that it'd be cheaper manufacturing a rubbish little CD or whatever, right?
Right.
And I think it's cool to try and maintain things like that. Like vinyl doesn't need to exist anymore, but I'm so glad it does. So yeah.
And people who don't like the Alpha Wolf songs, they just put your songs on a Spotify playlist and you're fucking done, right? Like,
yeah, exactly, man. So so everyone wins, So,
yeah, that's cool. I listened to you on you were on Metalcore Nerds with Sean Mott, which was a fun conversation to hear. Like I told him he was on this show, and I said I love like hearing musicians talk about something that's like not their music, just like geek out about like whatever Star Wars, Marvel, like horror films. It's just like. That's cool. Which led me to this question. When you guys are on tour as a band, do you all have like a collective interest or things like, okay, we're all going to sit down and watch like Battlestar Galactica or whatever, or it's like everybody's on their own phone or iPod doing their own thing, like somebody just wants to watch football or like...
Yeah, dude. No, it's a great question. I feel a bit bad actually because I'm the only member of the band that hasn't recently gotten into Formula One.
Okay.
Because there's the Drive to Survive Netflix series, and the boys are like obsessed with it. And it's quite weird for me because like I've loved football all my life, or soccer. And, it's like, it's been ingrained in me since I was like 6 years of age, but it's funny hearing the boys talk about, oh, did you see last season's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's weird to me that like a TV show is a season rather than another year of sport, if that makes sense. So it's quite weird hearing them talk about it. So like Ash and Scott aren't really into sport, any other sport really. And me and Ben are like football buddies. We both grew up on Man United. We both have matching Paul Scholes tattoos. Where is the Paul Scholes tattoo? The number 18 tattoo over there. So, but yeah, for me personally though, I am a diehard geek, and I will, my two main things really on tour is that I'm vegan and I'm a massive nerd. So I'll pull out my phone the second we get anywhere. I'll look up the nearest vegan food place. I'll look up the nearest comic book shop, and I'll just see if there's anything cool in the area really. But good question though. Yeah.
It's a much better time to be a vegan and to travel and to just be able to A, find stuff because of the phone, and B, there's so many more options these days. Like
for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's accessibility and the options are both bigger, and if anyone listening is vegan, I really encourage you to check out the Happy Cow app.
Oh yeah.
Because it's user generated and it's brilliant. So
yeah. I just remember being in high school, secondary school, like 16, and like going on vacation with my parents, and it's like being vegetarian and being like, I guess I can have French fries at McDonald's.
Dude, I know. And especially when you're young as well, people don't take you as seriously, because I went veggie when I was I think I was 19, so I wasn't that as young as you were. But it's like, people still tell me now as an adult man, oh, just have the chicken or whatever. So I can only imagine being a teenage boy or whatever in the middle of wherever the hell. And especially in places like Europe, it's like, chicken and cheese sandwiches are like the only things in French service stations and stuff. And you normally have to just not eat basically. So
yeah. All right. Let's talk about this new record, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction. It's phenomenal. You mentioned that this was a 3-part series, your last couple full lengths, that you had a sonic musical direction. So at what point did you guys start writing this record?
So I think this record, I got to be honest, the greatest mistake of my life was written and recorded like before the pandemic. So even though lots of people perceive it to be a pandemic album, we didn't write it, record it, and release it in the pandemic. So it kind of lived into that. And the point I'm getting at there is when the pandemic did hit, we didn't want to write another album. We just recorded one. And it was very much like we were just twiddling our thumbs, and all of our mates were writing albums. And we were kind of like, the vibe is weird. We just used all of our kind of tricks and you normally need time to regenerate creatively, So ironically, the Noble Art of Self-Destruction was it's probably one of the first post-pandemic albums you'll really listen to, because we just about started working on it, just kind of at the foot of, I guess, 2022, I guess. Okay. Yeah, there's a few songs in there that predate a little bit, but the main thing with this album, though, is this was the first time we'd written an album whilst being a full-time band. Yep. So, we would tour for 3 months and then we'd come home for 2 months. And genuinely, we did just go to the office and do 5-day writing weeks, And then we'd go on tour for another month, and then we'd come back and we'd go to a little studio somewhere else and try and find some more creative juice there. And it was interesting because the year 2022 was full time, and when we weren't on the road, we were writing this album basically. So I'm glad that it came out well, because I think a few times I remember thinking, is this healthy?
Given the title Noble Art of Self-Destruction, is that a lyrical theme? Like, you can kind of hear this record musically and lyrically, it goes up and down, and it feels like there's very positive, like joyful moments on it, but also some very like introspective or biting critiques of something.
For sure, man. Yeah. I think the main thing to remember with Holding Absence is we always aim for duality. So we're always, for every ugly moment, there's a beautiful one. And we're always trying to find the balance, But yeah, ultimately this album, for a whole host of reasons, whether it was subconscious or conscious, is a very self-critical album. And it's heavily inspired by kintsugi, which is the Japanese art form of mending things with gold and making them more valuable having been broken. And, metaphorically, I've always viewed, I've always viewed life as something that once you suffer, you learn. And I think that's kind of the lesson of this whole album, really, is it hurts to break, and sometimes you need to break yourself in order to mend in a certain way almost. But there is a beauty to it. And that was kind of the goal that I aimed for with the lyrics of this album. And I'm really proud of the overall kind of aura that I think it kind of gives off,
Yeah. That you talk about Kintsugi and like patching things up with gold, that definitely plays into the album artwork.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And like everything else as well. We're so excited to kind of explore more merch and more stuff, even for example, the vinyl booklet is like heavily inspired by like zine culture.
Okay.
Because, we kind of like the idea of, if this album is about things being broken and stuck back together, let's make a zine. Like, you know what I mean? Let's literally stick together, like, the graphic artwork as well, So yeah, there was a lot of that. But I think a big part of our band is, once we've got an image in our head and once we've got an ideology, how wide can we stretch it,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Who ended up doing the album artwork for you guys?
So our artwork has been done, pretty much exclusively since the self-titled by our photographer, Beth and Miller.
Okay.
And she tours with us. So, her fingerprints are all over this band, but I think she's got a real knack for kind of finding the striking imagery. And I think for me as well, I'm a very creative person, but I need others to almost filter, if that makes sense. Or, I'm a big bag of ideas, but I almost need a bottleneck who knows what it's doing almost, So with Beth, it was like, I knew I wanted this. I knew I wanted it to be white, blue, and gold because the Kintsugi China plate. And I knew I wanted the woman to be looking forward in context to her looking left and right for the last two, and all this. And there's so much thought went into that artwork. But yeah, Beth absolutely smashed it. And I think we've done, I can be arrogant about this because it's not actually me. I think our 3 album artworks are iconic, and I'm really proud of that,
Yeah. It feels like, I've said this a bunch of times, I'm a broken record now, but like the album artwork and like the importance of it, because streaming is so important, and just because like everybody wants things to look cool on vinyl, there seems to be a resurgence of like album artwork being great and being a focal piece and an art piece these days.
Yeah, I think it's basically life is something happening and then people responding to that thing happening. And for every crap album cover that I've seen over the last 10 years, I like to think bands like us are trying to fight the good fight on the other side and put more effort in almost, So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Because you wrote The Greatest Mistake of My Life before the pandemic, did you have to like, and you didn't, I mean, you eventually got to tour on it late 21, 22, but like, coming out of the pandemic, did you have to reset or find different things to inspire you lyrically? Not being like, this is like a pandemic heavy album or like...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because truth be told though, that's why I didn't want to do a second of writing really in the pandemic, because I knew it would just cloud everything, my every thought, my every aspiration, there's always this big cloud hanging over it with the pandemic. And so, so to be honest, I don't think it affected this album because I really tried to make a vested effort for it not to affect this album.
Yeah. Yeah. What things were inspiring you lyrically?
A lot. I think the main thing that really stuck with me was when I started looking into Michelangelo's David, and I started, and I was listening to a podcast with Earl Sweatshirt, and they were talking about sculpting music, and I was like, God, there is like a real synergy between, and then obviously the noble art of self-destruction. Once I'd realized that a marble bust is basically a block that has been broken rather than create, you know what I mean? Like you have to destroy to create. So a lot of that imagery was running through my head. But I think the main thing for me with this album though was I've always been very conceptual with my lyrics. The first album was a concept album about love and a relationship beginning and ending. And then The Greatest Mistake of My Life was kind of about grief and kind of about celebrating life in spite of death and stuff like that. And I think this album, I wanted to be more personal because I feel like I'd almost subscribed to the concepts too much before. And I think ironically, the concept of this album is about being personal. So it is a concept album. It's probably our most conceptual album, but I think I managed to bake more of myself into these lyrics than ever before. So
yeah. Is it tough to like, how do I say this? Like dive deep and like create like constant writing lyrics? Like is it better for you to have a concept to know you're going down a path, like this is what I want to write, versus like, I don't know, you can only mine your personal life so long? No, I know exactly what you mean, man. And I think you've almost asked two questions there, because it's like one of them is on the topic of like almost like self fatigue, where you're almost sick of thinking about yourself. It's like, you know, I feel like I've been going to therapy for the last 10 years as a musician, you know, and it comes about where it's like, oh my God, is there anything left to say about me? You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the one thing. But yeah, I don't know, you can like lose yourself to it a little bit as well. So there is a case of trying to find a midpoint between, for me at least anyway, I always find it easier. There's this analogy where like the hardest thing to paint is a blank canvas, you know, because it's like, what do you paint, dude? There's billions of things you can paint on a blank canvas, but if you pick up something with a pencil outline, then at least you know what to embellish and what to add to it. And I think with this album, I knew the Kintsugi and the Michelangelo, and I just knew somewhere in amongst that, I will be able to really explore myself more than ever before. So kind of finding the least rigid lyrics I've ever written amongst the most rigid kind of concept, you know? So yeah. At what point did the title of the record come along, and did that drive any of your lyrics going like, okay, this is the direction we're going, more concretely than just like these abstract ideas? Yeah,
great question, because the Greatest Mistake of My Life, we began that campaign with the title. So, you know, I've spoken a lot about it, but that album is inspired by a song from the 30s. And, you know, we kind of felt like it embodied everything that we were aiming for. So we knew that title. But basically, that was the first thing we wrote. And then everything kind of came from there. Whereas with this album, it was like, you know, we can't, you know, it's almost like pulling the shiny Charizard out the first pack in the box. You know what I mean? It's like the hardest thing first is almost like you can't get used to that luxury. So for us, it was like, we knew the title would be important, and we know it'll come when it does. For a long time, I really liked the idea of calling the album Without Wax, because marble statues will generally be filled in with wax. And if a statue is without wax, then it is sincere, flawed, and real, I guess, you know. And fun fact, but there's a common, I don't know if it's an urban legend or if it's actually true, but sincera means without wax, and people theorize that's where the word sincere came from. So yeah, crazy. But anyway, we didn't go with that one in the end.
It probably a little too out there and abstract for people to be like, what the fuck is this?
What is this guy on about? Yeah.
I don't want to talk about like the future, but does there feel like, because you've had this creative concept for this trilogy musically, now that you're done, is there like, okay, what's next? Or is there like a freedom, or just like not thinking about that yet?
I'm very much thinking about that. Yeah. I think it's tough because it's like, you know, we're very fortunate for where the band is, you know, but I've grown up world as a fanatic of the bands that I toured with, and like, you know, and you watch bands ebb and flow, and you watch bands peak and dip and dive, and you know, and I think we're very fortunate with Holden Absence, because the graph chart literally just goes like that, you know. It's been a patient, slow, steady rise, but I do believe that, you know, and I think it's interesting now, because we're in a position where after this album, we know we want to rewrite the rule book, but we want to keep that going like that.
Yeah.
You know? So it's there's lots of thinking going on behind closed doors at the moment, especially for me, you know, the overthinker. But I think more than anything, there is a real excitement to it as well, because we love what we do. But I feel like we do stuff and we'll go, nah, that's too,
Right.
whatever, that's too out there, or too experimental, or or not poppy enough, or whatever. And I think, I almost want our next album to be a sellout and a prog album at the same time, so that sounds exciting and terrifying.
Yeah. It's like, it's a job, so you got to make sure the business is going the right direction, but it's also like creativity. And
fun, man. Yeah,
and it's like the best job.
yeah. So it's always about, and like I said, it's about duality as well. But I think maybe, we've been going all the way to the left, all the way to the right before, and now I want to go all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom, and almost redefine that duality, I guess.
Yeah. Album is out August 25th. What's your plans after the album drops?
Tour the world, which is great. But yeah, we've basically got like 3 months straight. Like the day the album comes out begins pretty much a 3-month, and it's great, but it is like a world tour. So we daisy chain. We do a UK acoustic signing kind of tour, and then we go straight to America for Senses Fail, straight to Australia for the Thornhill tour, and then straight back home for the UK Europe tour, and then in December then we can rest. So wow, a lot of work.
That's bananas. Is it a pain being like a European band, being like, we gotta go to America and like make it in America in the scene, or does that not exist so much anymore? Like, because I've talked to some people where they're like, yeah, we got to get over to the States, we got to get over there, that matters, and some people were like, just tour Europe and be big here. Right?
Genuinely, I think that's a really great question, because some bands would feel that way, but I think we just enjoy the thrill of going on that plane and changing our lives for 6 weeks and then coming home, and then because I think this is a very important part of our band. I think we're quite grounded, and that very much comes from the fact that we grew up in a very small kind of community in Wales in the United Kingdom, and then we go and play Chicago and New York and LA, and it's just like, it is quite simply inconceivable how different that world is. So every time we come back, it's just like, there's no way we're not having the best time. You know what I mean? So but that being said, I understand that it is a lot of effort, flying all that way and touring for 6 weeks, but we love playing shows, and we're grateful as hell to be able to do it anywhere other than the UK, actually. So I got to be honest, the first time touring America actually felt like a rebirth for us. It felt like a whole new, on Grand Theft Auto, when the new map unlocks and it's like, whoa, I've played this game for hours and I can play it for hours more, and it feels brand new whilst also feeling really familiar. That's kind of how it felt,
Yeah. Have you noticed like the response getting better each time you come back? More people are there, more people, if you're playing early, people are there early, they're singing the songs. Yeah,
man. I mean, we're very shocked by how well we're doing in North America, to be honest, because every time we come back, we feel like there's more people in the crowd for us, but for every person who's seen us 4 times, having done 4 tours or whatever, there's somebody who's been waiting to see us for months and know every word, and then on top of that, there's a bunch of people who don't know who we are, and we're hopefully turning those into the other people as well. You know what I mean? So there's constantly this. Yeah, it just feels like almost like an infinite pool to pull from, almost, which is really, really exciting. So
nice. As a self-proclaimed nerd, what things have you been reading or watching or listening to, enjoying recently?
Oh boy, I've been watching. Me and my girlfriend watch a lot of telly when I'm home, because it's like, it's a way of us doing things without doing anything. There's a real beauty to sitting on the couch when you're away so often. But so at the moment, we're watching Death Note, which I've never seen before, and I'm just about finished. Can't wait. It's brilliant. We finished watching Succession, which was brilliant, and we just started watching a show called The Bear as well, which is really great. Yeah, so that TV side of things is really, really good. And then comics wise, which is normally my other kind of thing, which I do the most, I've been reading the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin, which is a comic about
great. It's so
dude,
good.
I haven't finished it yet. So I have this thing with comics and video games where I almost get scared to finish them, because I'll never be able to experience it for the first time again. So I'll read like 10 pages and I'll put it away and then come back in a week and then be like, whoa. So yeah, I've been reading that, and I've been reading else I've been reading? I just read loads of manga at the moment. So I've been reading Fire Punch, which is the guy who wrote Chainsaw Man's other project, but it is very extreme. Nice. It's like dark as hell. So I wouldn't actually urge anyone to read it, probably. So yeah.
Nice. Have you read Something is Killing the Children?
Yes, I love it. I'm completely up to date with it. I think it's brilliant, man. I can't wait to see the TV show as well.
Yeah. I'm not finished. I've just finished volume 5 of the collected. So
okay, well, I think that's where I'm at, because I basically I wrote this rule where I'm like, I don't buy single trades because it's just like downhill, you know. I started getting into Pokemon cards recently as well, and like, there's no end to the amount of money you can spend as a lame geek. So I need to be careful. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.